So, how do you measure something as huge, as incredibly complex, as an entire country's economy? I mean, it sounds almost impossible, right? Trying to stick a single price tag on billions of transactions, products, and services. But you know what? Economists do it every single day. And the results, well, they can be pretty mind boggling. And get this, by one of the most common ways of measuring, India now has the fifth largest economy on the entire planet. That is just a massive, massive number. But that just brings us right back to the big question, doesn't it? We have the ranking, we see the number, but what does it actually mean? How in the world do you even begin to calculate something that big and that important? Well, that's the puzzle we're going to solve right now. So that fifth largest title, it comes from a measure called nominal GDP, and it puts India in some pretty elite company, right up there with economic giants like the United States, China, Japan, and Germany.
Okay, so how do we actually get to that number? Well, it turns out there isn't just one way to solve this puzzle. Economists have come up with three totally different methods, three different paths that, in a perfect world, should all lead to the exact same result.
So what are these paths? We've got the spending path, which is also called the expenditure method. Then there's the production path, or the value-added method. And finally, you have the income path. Just think of them as three different camera angles, all looking at the very same economic activity. First up, let's talk about the spending path. Now, this approach is probably the one that makes the most sense to most of us. It's literally all about following the money. You just add up every single dollar, every rupee spent on all the final goods and services inside a country for a whole year. And this brings us to probably the most famous formula in all of economics. C is for consumer spending. That's you and me buying coffee or a new phone. I is for business investment in things like new factories or technology. G stands for government spending on stuff like roads and public services. And then you add net exports, which is just what the country sells to the world minus what it buys from the world. Simple as that. All right, our second path is the production method. So instead of tracking what's being spent, this method looks at what's being made. It measures the value that's created at every single step of the production process, which is why it's also called the value-added method. The calculation is actually pretty straightforward. You take the final value of something, say a brand new car, and you subtract the value of all the parts that went into it, like the steel and the tires. You do this across every sector, from farming to factories to services, and that gives you what's called the gross value added, or GVA. And that brings us to our third and final path, the income method. This one asks a really simple question. After all that spending and all that producing is done, where did all the money actually go? It tracks every single dollar that's earned as income. So you just add up all the wages and salaries paid to workers, the profits earned by companies, the interest paid on loans, and the rents collected on property. And it makes perfect sense, right? Every dollar of output has to end up as a dollar of someone's income. It's all a closed loop. Okay, so those are the three methods in theory. But how does this stuff work in the real world? Let's bring it back to our case study and see how India actually puts these ideas into practice. So when we look at India's official calculation, something kind of stands out. It uses the production method and the expenditure method, but that third path we just talked about, the income method, well, it's missing. And that is a huge question. I mean, why would a country just leave out 1/3 of the playbook for measuring its own economy? Especially a method that other big economies like Germany and Canada really rely on.
Well, the answer, as the source material tells us, comes down to India's massive informal economy. Think about street vendors, daily laborers, small family-run shops. It's just incredibly difficult, maybe even impossible, to accurately track all the wages and profits in a sector that big. It just makes the income method too unreliable.
So we know India is fifth by nominal GDP. But hold on, because this is where the story takes a really fascinating twist. That number, it's just one part of a much bigger picture. Because depending on how you look at it, you get a tale of three very, very different ranks. First, you've got our headline number, fifth in the world. This is nominal GDP, the raw total value of everything produced. It's a measure of the economy's sheer size and power on the world stage. But what happens when you take that enormous economic pie and you have to divide it among 1.4 billion people? Well, the story completely flips. On a per-person basis, or GDP per capita, India's rank plummets all the way down to 139th.
This tells us a lot less about the country's overall power and a lot more about the economic reality for the average person.
But there's one more angle. What can that money actually buy you? I mean, a dollar goes way, way further in Mumbai than it does in Manhattan, right? So when you adjust for these local price differences using a measure called purchasing power parity, the picture shifts again. By this metric, India's economy is actually the third largest in the world because it reflects the true domestic buying power of its people.
So which one is it? Is India's economy fifth, 139th, or third? And the answer is, it's all three. Each number is a correct answer to a different question. Each one is a different way of understanding what's going on.
And this really gets us to the most important takeaway here. A GDP figure isn't some absolute truth. It's a tool, and its meaning depends entirely on how you use it and what question you're trying to answer. The method matters. Each of these different rankings tells a vital but incomplete story, and understanding how we measure is every bit as important as the final number we see.
Which leaves us with a final question to really chew on. If a single economy can hold these three wildly different positions all at the exact same time, it forces us to ask, what are we really measuring when we talk about a nation's wealth? Is it the total size? Is it the average prosperity? Or is it the real-world buying power? The answer, it seems, depends entirely on the story you want to tell.